Hi, thank you for checking out this video. This is going to be the first in a monthly series going over my 5 favorite comics of every month throughout the year, um, starting with January. Hopefully, they won't always be as delayed as this one. This video will probably be dropping like halfway through February, so my bad. It's been a busy start of the month. But that being said, I figure let's just get into it. I read approximately 20 comics or so every single week. I have a very large pull list, and all throughout the month, I am keeping track. Any comic that sticks with me for whatever reason, for story reasons, if it makes me feel really strong emotions in any direction on the emotional compass, sadness, fear, action. It earned a spot on my short list. I keep notes all throughout the month. This month I had 6 comics that made my short list for top 5. So there is going to be one honorable mention on this list. Just barely didn't make the cut, and honestly, it's only because I didn't want to have multiple Batman books on this list. And also, before I get too far into this, I do want to say spoiler warning. I will be spoiling some of these books, most of them, so keep that in mind. I'll put timestamps down below if you want to skip ahead to not spoil yourself for any one of these books as I go through them, but spoiler warning. So my one honorable mention this month is Batman the Knight, issue number 1. This is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Carmine Di Giandomenico. Um, this is a 12-issue series that is going to be going over the time period of Bruce Wayne's life after the death of his parents, leading up to him becoming Batman, which really spoke to me because that is a time period in every Batman comic that goes over his origin story. That is a time period that is brushed aside and gotten through within a couple of panels. We always hear about how he's with his parents, they get murdered right in front of him. He goes off to travel the world and train, comes back to Gotham City, and is now Batman. And that's it. And we just kind of accept that. I assume there have been some stories over the years that get into that in between part of his life, his training period, but I haven't really seen them, especially anything that deals with his teenage years. This first issue focuses on Bruce Wayne in school, breaking up fights, stopping bullies from picking on other kids. There is a scene here of Alfred picking him up from the principal's office, and he almost has like a mini breakdown in the car. Just seeing the pressure on Alfred, as now he has to be a father figure to this very troubled young man, is kind of a perspective that I had never really considered before. This especially hits for me because I've read a lot of Superman origin comics, and quite a few of them deal with Superman's teenage years as he's growing up on the farm in Smallville, hanging out with Lana Lang, and learning who he's going to become. This is actually a plot point that we have gotten repeatedly for Clark Kent, but never really for Bruce Wayne. Not in this level of detail. And I really appreciate what we got here in this issue 1. Chip Zdarsky is one of my favorite writers right now, and I'm very much on board with the story he's telling here. This only didn't make my top 5 because there is one other Batman book on the list that just barely nudged it out of the running. I didn't want to put 2 Bat books in my top 5 books of the month. Sorry, Batman the Knight, number 1, my 6th favorite book of the month, so kind of counts. First up is number 5 on my list. That is going to be the other Batman book I was just talking about. I'm choosing the Batman Catwoman special. It was originally scheduled to be released back in July of 2021, but unfortunately, the artist of this book, John Paul Leon, passed away in May after the book was solicited, but before it was released. So DC made the decision to delay releasing this comic. It was originally going to be a $6 fill-in story that was right at the halfway point of the main Batman Catwoman run by Tom King and Clay Mann. But after John Paul Leon's passing, they delayed the book and expanded it to be a $10 square-bound book that does contain the original Batman Catwoman story, which is about half of this book. The other half is a mixture of other comics that John Paul Leon worked on, that he penciled, that were dug out of the DC archives and put into this special to pay tribute. And then several artists did full page kind of memorials where they would write up a pretty moving piece about John Paul Leon. And for me, unfortunately, I'm not as familiar with his work as I probably should have been. And just doing a brief look through his Wikipedia page and looking at all of the things he has worked on, I realized like I have seen a lot of stuff he did. I just never I never noticed. You know, it's kind of sad, and it doesn't hit me until looking back on it. But he has done work on some of my favorite books, like DMZ and Ex Machina and Captain America in the mid 2000s. I'm going to try and make an effort to go back and look at a lot of the things he drew, because this issue in particular, it produced a lot of emotion. There was a moment during the Batman Catwoman story in here too that brought me to tears, if I'm being 100% honest. And it's a story that tells the relationship of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle over the years, focused around different Christmases in their life. It's very much a holiday special. It kind of makes more sense that they put this out in January, that it was delayed. This wouldn't have made much sense to come out in July, but just unfortunate, obviously, that it had to be delayed for that reason. Batman Catwoman special, a very moving comic, not an experience I get very often in this hobby. Next on my list, number 4 on my top 5 books from January 2022. I promise I did not plan it this way, but number 4 on my list is The Fourth Man from AWA Upshot, my favorite publisher. I will say it every chance I get. My favorite publisher. This is The Fourth Man, number 1 out of 4. This is one of the more cinematic books I have, one of the more cinematic comics I have ever read, mainly because the artist, Mike Deodato. I should also mention that this comic is written by Jeff McComsey, is the writer here, but Mike Deodato, the artist, clearly used actors' likenesses for the characters in this book. I have seen him do this before in Dark Avengers. He was the artist on this book as well, and he clearly based the character of Norman Osborn on Tommy Lee Jones. It's a pretty clear comparison, and he does that again here in The Fourth Man. Almost every single main character in this book is based off an actor. I'm gonna run through them because it's honestly the main thing I noticed while reading this book. It's not as distracting as it was in Dark Avengers, I think, for me, because there are so many of them. It feels more like a movie where you can spot actors that you recognize. But this comic has Harvey Keitel. This comic has Paul Giamatti. This comic has Regina King. This comic has James Caan. Uh, this comic has even Bill Paxton appearing in a cameo in a newspaper. This comic also has Paul Winfield, who I recognized from The Terminator. Also, Ed Harris is in here playing one of the antagonists. And there's even a one-panel cameo of Morgan Freeman, of all people, pops up in one image in this book. It's got a cast. It's got a cast of actors playing these roles. But what is the comic actually about? It is about two detectives, played by Paul Giamatti and Regina King, who are investigating a series of murders in a small town. This first issue, they look at the corpse of the most recent victim, and the whole issue is a flashback showing how this victim, played by Paul Giamatti, comes to his demise. And I'm assuming as the comic goes on, further issues will explore how the other dead men in this comic, how they met their demise, and how they all tie into this growing war between two rival car dealerships. The story is, it's a little black. There's a little bit of black comedy in here. It's actually kind of reminiscent of Fargo in a way, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen that movie, by the way, watch Fargo. This is a cool comic. It's one of the more cinematic series that AWA has. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. But yeah, it's 4 issues, so it'll be over. It'll be over before you know it. That's number 4 on my top 5 January comics. We're at number 3. Number 3 on my list is something that I missed in the pre-order catalog. This actually, it took kind of a long story for me to even pick up this book and try it, but I'm glad I did. I'm talking about Rain. Number 1 is my third favorite comic of January 2022. First off, shout out to my friend Justin at No Good Comics, a YouTube channel and an Instagram that you should definitely be following. He posted nonstop about this book the week that it came out. It was funny watching so many other people respond to him and be like, hey, I actually tried Rain. It was pretty cool. Hey, I tried Rain. I liked it a lot. And then our mutual friend, John's Comics with Kids, would always respond to these people and be like, don't bow into the peer pressure. You guys don't have to read this book. Don't listen to Justin. Just being a contrarian, just to be different. And so, partly because I wanted to listen to Justin's recommendation, but also partly because I wanted to stick it to John, I went out and I found a copy of Rain number 1, and I read it, and it turns out it was really good. So yeah, shout out to Justin, and also kind of, but not really, shout out to John's Comics with Kids. Anyway, Rain is based off of a novella written by Joe Hill. The comic is adapted by David M. Booher with art by Zoe Thorogood. It tells you in the first page or two that the whole premise of this book is about a rainfall that is crystal nails and not liquid raindrops like normal rain. This is sharp, horrifying nails that kill anybody who's outside, really, because you get stabbed to death by a bunch of nails. That's not really a spoiler, since that is the overall premise of the comic. So all throughout the first half of this book, we are hearing this story from Honeysuckle's perspective, and she is going over how nice of a day it is outside. She's listing off her neighbors who she describes, and then she describes how they are about to die. So on the one hand, you are kind of lulled into this sense of, a cute couple, this normal sense of a couple moving in together and a cute romantic story. But on the other hand, you are being told up front that people are about to die and something horrible is going to happen. It still manages to kind of amp up the tension and the creep factor, and then when the bad thing finally does happen, it is horrifying and shocking. I have no idea where this book is going to go. Something really bad happens. She tells you she witnesses a whole bunch of people around her die. I have no idea where this story is going to go. That is very exciting to me. So, number 3 goes to Rain. Give it a shot. So, number 2, The Silver Coin, issue number 8. If you are unfamiliar, The Silver Coin is a horror anthology series. Each issue stands on its own, but they all revolve around a silver coin with a curse on it. Whoever has the coin, basically from the moment they acquire it, their life completely goes downhill. Each issue tells the story of one person who has control of this coin in various points throughout history. One issue was in the colonial Salem witch trial era, and there is one issue that is also a couple hundred years in the future. Every issue is written by a different writer. The artist is Michael Walsh, and he has been consistent throughout all 8 issues so far. And this one is written by Matthew Rosenberg. This story takes place in the 60s, and it deals with a janitor who works at a stock broker place, place where rich people do stock stuff, not the actual like Wall Street exchange with all the people on the floor and not that building, but he's a janitor who works for a bunch of rich people, and one of these rich people acquires a collection of rare coins from honestly, a really sketchy, creepy looking. He's not a coin salesman, but he's got this collection of rare coins that he sells to this rich guy, and as the janitor is cleaning the room, the guy can't help but kind of show off his new collection. And from the moment the janitor character lays eyes on this coin, he is kind of taken over by its spell. And from then on, he concocts this crazy plan to steal it for himself. And it doesn't go the way he wants. I'll put it that way. I don't want to spoil too much of this because the fun of reading it is reading this particular issue. It's a one and done storyline, so there's not much time to lose in this story. But one of my favorite elements that's exclusive to this single issue is a lot of the panels are interspersed with shots of the coin itself. It appears to be falling, but you can't really tell, and it's almost it doesn't make sense why they're cutting away to a shot of the coin. And the further along the story gets, the more you realize that you are seeing the end of the story, the ending of which one of the windows in this building breaks as the janitor and the rich guy are fighting over the coin, and the janitor ends up jumping out the window of this skyscraper to try and catch the coin, but he ends up obviously falling into a parked car and he dies, and the coin rolls off. And the final shot is a homeless man on the street who grabs the coin and walks away. You know, he thinks it's his lucky day, but as we know by now, whoever has the coin will. It is not a lucky day, and I very much like the idea that a future chapter of this story could very feasibly pick up right from his perspective once he gets the coin. I like having an anthology series in my pull list because it's refreshing to just kind of get a break. Like I can read any issue of Silver Coin at any time in any order. It's a pure one shot of horror and adrenaline and just great storytelling. Just give this series a try. Silver Coin has been a lot of fun. I wouldn't be surprised if another issue of this story ends up somewhere in my top 5 throughout the rest of this year. All right, we did it. You made it. You made it to number 1. Thank you for watching this far and for caring this much about my opinion. For most of 2020 and the early part of 2021, this was my number 1 favorite series until another book came out and overtook that for me. This is still my second favorite current ongoing comic. This is the variant cover for The Department of Truth. This is issue number 15. This series is written by James Tynion IV. The art for this book is normally done by Martin Simmons, but this issue, the art is done by David Romero, who does this cover. But also David Romero he's been working a lot with James Tynion on Razor Blades, the horror magazine. So this comic takes place in a world where if enough people believe in a thing, then that thing will become real. So the Department of Truth is a branch of our government whose job it is to maintain the status quo and make sure that certain things that they don't want to materialize in the real world, they want to make sure that doesn't happen. And so if enough people believe in, for example, that the moon landing was not real, then that will actually have been the case. If enough people believe in the flat earth theory, that the world is not in fact a globe but a flat plane surface, then that will materialize and be the reality. If enough people believe in an abominable snowman or Bigfoot, who is actually addressed in several issues of this run. One of my favorite summaries of the whole premise of this book is the head of the department is explaining to a new recruit. Our main character in this story is a new recruit to the Department of Truth, and he explains to him that every few years they have to send a team out to the North Pole to go kill Santa because enough kids have started to believe in Santa to materialize him in the real world. So they need to assassinate Santa Claus. And I'm really kind of hoping that eventually we will get an issue where we see that happen. Hasn't happened yet. There are the first 2 arcs of this story are issues 1 through 5, and then in order to give the artist Martin Simmons a break and time to catch up for the next story arc, issues 6 and 7 were one-shot kind of tie-in sort of books, and then we had issues 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 was the second story arc. And this issue here, number 15, is the second set of kind of rest issues for Martin Simmons. He is not drawing this, like I said before. This is done by David Romero, and this book is about the Mothman. This is a flashback issue to the 1960s. The department is trying to intentionally manifest one of these wild creatures that people believe in, and their job is normally, like I was saying, their job is normally to go around and exterminate any of these creatures that materialize in the world. They try to manifest one in this issue intentionally in order to capture it and run tests on it. The reason I'm picking this issue is because it is told in a different way from a normal chapter of this book. The story in this issue is told in a debrief session that one of the characters is giving to a higher up in the department after going on a mission to capture this the Mothman in West Virginia. So the entire issue is told in a transcript that you read after the fact. It's got extra layers of mystery because we don't even know who he's being debriefed by. The guy's name is blacked out on every time his name appears in the transcript. We have no idea who it is, which adds, you know, this extra layer of hidden mystery, like who's he talking to, who's in charge, who's really in charge. And then it cuts away to several just big, large splash page images of various scary encounters with the Mothman. It's not so much a traditional comic where you have panel doing the storytelling. It's more like prose where you are reading something more close to a novel with images interspersed throughout. But the images that are in here are very chilling. This comic is a perfect mixture of horror, politics, conspiracy theories, aliens, monsters, and just a bunch of stuff that is like tailor-made for me. I love it. I'm excited to see where we go from here. I believe there are going to be a few more of these one-shot kind of flashback fill-in issues. I'm a big fan of them. I'm a big fan of everything about the Department of Truth. I think it's a fantastic book. I'm very excited to see if it gets adapted for a TV show. I think it would make a really cool show. I'm worried. I'm worried if they do. I don't know if they'll do it right. It's a tricky subject. There's a lot of material here that might not work very well on screen. And a big part of why I love this book so much is the dark artwork by Martin Simmons, and in this issue by David Romero. Some of that would be lost in live action. The artwork really does a lot of the heavy lifting in this book. I can almost certainly guarantee that this is not the only time in 2022 that this comic will make an appearance on one of these favorite books of the month lists. All that to say, Department of Truth, issue number 15, was my favorite book of January 2022. All right, that's that. Those were my 5 favorite books for the month of January 2022. I'm interested to see what any of you liked or disliked about my picks here. I'm also curious what you think are the best books of last month. What are some things I missed out on? It was hard. It was hard to pick only 5, but these ones in particular really evoked, like I said at the beginning, they evoked a lot of different emotions in me as I read them throughout the month, and they stood out above all the other stuff I read. I've already got a few books written down that might make the list for February, so stay tuned for that. I'm hoping to have that out a little earlier in the month. I'm sorry that this is almost halfway done with February before you're getting my favorite January comics, but like I said, it's been a busy couple weeks here at the start of the month. You should get the next installment of this series earlier in the month, unless I'm just completely unreliable and a total screw up, which is very likely. So, again, thank you all for taking the time to listen to me ramble about comic books that I like. It's weird. It's a weird position to find myself in, but I like it. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you back here next month.